Hello, my lovely soul, and welcome to Unstoppable Confidence. I am your host, Lauren Glick. I am here to bring you my energy, my motivational speaking, and me being a confidence mentor. My mission is to inspire women to own who they are, step into their higher selves fearlessly, and live a life with unstoppable joy. On this show, we are going to cover everything from aligning your life to your higher self, setting boundaries, self-growth, and living a purpose-driven life. Let's get you living a meaningful life you cannot wait to wake up to. Stop driving and start living with ease and abundance. Cheers to living a magical life. And I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. Now, let's head into today's episode. Hello, my lovely. Today, you better buckle up because this woman has such an inspiring story. Her name is Kelly Gunther, and she is a 2014 Olympian and is also known as the Comeback Kid. So I'm excited for you to tune in and start to really understand her story to inspire you. So on that, loves, can't wait to get into it. I will see you on the other side. Kelly, I'm so happy you're here today. Thank you so much for coming and talking to my audience, especially that one listener that is tuning in right now. Kelly has a phenomenal story that really shocks me, and I'm so stoked for her story, for you to listen into her story today. So Kelly, would love for you to have just a little introduction before we get into the interview today.
Absolutely. Lauren, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and honored and talk to your guest. As Lauren said, I am Kelly Gunther, 2014 retired Olympian, known as the Comeback Kid. And I'm so excited to be here and to dive in a little bit into my story and get to know you guys.
I love it, Kelly. I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk about it. So when you said that you were a 2014 Olympian, you are an Olympian, you're a retired Olympian. What sport was your main sport when you, as an Olympian? I'm going to stop rambling and just have you talk, Kelly.
No, you're totally good. I did long track speed skating. So long track is on a 400-meter track. So if you're listening, you can picture a running track around the high school football field and then put ice on that. And there's our track. But essentially, I did not start ice skating until I was 19 years old. I actually grew up in a roller rink, and inline speed skating and roller skates is not an Olympic sport, essentially. So that's how I started off, and then transferred over at 19 because I still thought I was kind of young to learn a whole new sport all over again.
That's so interesting. You didn't start ice skating until you were 19. And
I did not.
How did that transfer over from roller skating to ice skating? Like, was that a hard transfer over?
Mm-hmm. Yes and no. I had some background just because of the inline. It's really a lot similar to ice, like technique wise and your form and whatnot. But essentially, I mean, you are learning a whole new sport. So the transition was a little bit harder, but inliners seem to catch on a little bit faster, just coming from that athletic world that you've just come from wheels on your feet to now a blade.
I love it. And as you were saying that, I was like, oh God, that's a good question. And then I totally forgot it, Kelly. But here it goes. So, because I was thinking about the difference between having the athletic ability versus your mindset and confidence to be an Olympian or just have that athletic ability. Would you say, like, with those two. I'm trying to get out this question here, and I'm trying to like make it make sense in my brain. Which one were they pretty even within like the athletic ability and the mindset? And how did that mindset play in for you?
Yes, they both really played a role on the same line as, mindsets. You're racing. Inline speed skating, I like to really consider or look at as if you're racing like NASCAR. It's a little bit of like
Yeah.
more bump and grinding and whatnot. And in that sport, it's really the competitor who sometimes has the best, game plan that day. And if someone hits you, then you know how to go around, or someone falls, it's kind of the luck of the draw. But long track speed skating, it's really cut and dry. And I
Mm.
like to really compare it to swimming. You're in your own lane. I mean, no one you are next to somebody as a pair, but you don't touch each other. You're racing just the clock. And so the fastest person wins because the clock never lies. And
Yeah.
so having that mindset is a little bit different because you go from racing with people around you to racing essentially by yourself. But at the end of the day, you're still racing the clock. And that's really what matters.
Interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
how long were you an Olympian for?
Uh-huh. So I was an Olympian at 25. I made it, and yeah, so for 5, 6, 7 years now.
I love it. And what was that because I know you no longer speed skate, correct?
I do not. In 2018, I actually stepped away. I retired at those Olympic trials. Rather, I was going to make it or didn't make it. I had at that point been skating for a really long time. My body was exhausted, physically and mentally. I was there, was drained. And just kind of like with anything, when you're ready, and I was just at that point to be happy if I made it. I made it, and then just be just as happy if I didn't make it. And what my favorite thing is I'm a huge believer that everything happens for a reason. And
Mm.
my best race is the 1,000 meter, and I had just missed by one final position, but yet the girl that did make it, I was so happy for her to go to get to experience that because it was her first and only games, and she had grown up actually next to the oval watching them at the 2002 Winter Olympics in her hometown of Utah. So for me, it's really I was if anyone could have beat me that day, I was glad it was her. So
I love it.
yeah.
And why did you retire?
Mm-hmm. I knew I was ready. I knew my body was, there. Like I said, physically, I had 2 back injections, 2 knee injections just to get
Mm.
to Olympic trials. So I was putting a lot of wear and tear in my body and couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And then so just likely, my mind was mentally done. I was drained. I mean, it's a battle, and it's a complete mental game. And if you're not there, you're not there. And I just I knew I was starting to see life outside of skating, where for 25 years I had never gotten to experience life outside of an ice rink or essentially a roller rink. So I was ready for that.
I like it. And because I know as retired fire, it's like, because I know we were talking before about how you are known for so much more than being an Olympian. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because like having that high of a caliber of like an identity, it's that identity shift from retiring is a little bit of a challenge as well. But I first, before we get into that, I definitely do want to, because I know that you had an incident happen right before you retired as well. I would love for you to get into that story too, Kelly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Uh, 2010, I actually tried out for the Olympics in Vancouver to race in Vancouver, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
The Olympics were, there. I was new to the sport. I'd only been skating at that time for about 2 years. And I wanted to skate those Olympic trials to get the emotions out, the feelings out, because I knew my eye on the prize was already for the next 4 years to try out
Yeah.
for Sochi, Russia. Essentially, I had made the 2010 Olympic team. I was going to Vancouver. I had dreamt about it ever since I was a little girl. And I couldn't be so more excited to live that dream out and have it really come to life. for about only 24 hours, that is. And the reason why I say that is because while I was in drug testing and the whole 9 yards, the competitor who it had come down to and I had gotten third place. And that's with her sliding across the finish line, maybe about 5 to 10 meters. But so good enough, as I said, to place her third place. And I was first place in the 1,000 meter. Well, I guess on that day, the batter got to go for one more fourth and final strikeout instead of three, because we know three, you're out, no game left.
Yeah.
And with her fourth and final strikeout, she was able to get a reskate, skate a personal best time that she's ever skated in her whole entire life. And that's essentially what knocked me off the team and put her on. So being new to the sport, I was a little confused on how that was fair. When I was named the team, I was going. And then in an arbitration, we had found out she had made different World Cup teams and different things like that to be able to make it. So the athlete that I was going to become after facing that battle was going to happen that very next day. And I'm not saying it was easy to go through that process. I definitely was down that night and I definitely cried. But in life, we get these choices and our chances to know that we can either be down and be miserable, or no matter what, that alarm clock and that practice is going to go on, whether I was there or not there. And I really decided that I was going to go back to practice that very next day, even though it wasn't easy. I mean, everybody's on a high. They're gearing up for Vancouver, their Olympics on, and I just got a taste of that medicine. So it was very hard, but I knew at the end of the day, I had to be better, faster, and stronger, because nobody within that next 4 years was going to take me off an Olympic team, and I was going to make it fair and square. With that being said, I finished out the season of 2010. 2.5 months later, I was racing the very last race in March, and again in Salt Lake City, I was racing the 500 meter, the very first race of the entire weekend.
Yeah.
And I had just passed the 50-meter mark of the 500, and my ankle and foot had different plans for me that day. So going back to that baseball player, I went from a speed skater in a half blink of an eye to a baseball player, where I was laying on my stomach with my arms out in front of me and my feet up behind me. And I was laying there on my stomach in that position, knowing a bone was broken, knowing something wasn't right. I just really took a deep breath and I had said, okay, Kelly, you can look once, but you can never look again. So it's exactly what I did. And in that moment, as I looked, I know and saw my foot was detached from my leg. And I just really, again, focused on where I was. I think I was probably a little bit in shock. I never cried. I knew I was going to be okay. I knew I was going to be able to skate again. So much so that the paramedics were like, your foot's hanging off your leg. I don't know if you know this, but I was like, no, I'm going to be okay. We're going to go to surgery. Well, it's going to be okay. And so I did. And that's the whole process of 2010.
Holy moly. I got the chills again from you telling me that story. So you're, I don't want to really get into details, but I just want to ask one question, Kelly. Did you say your foot was still attached, semi at least?
It was still attached, yes, semi, but severely just like off completely. They always say if they would have took the boot off, because at that time they took the blade off the boot.
Yeah.
But if they would have took the boot off, then there was no telling if the foot would have went with the boot. So they didn't take actually the skate off itself until I was in surgery.
So with this whole process, like that's a huge flipping event. Obviously, I'm telling you this right now, Lauren, come on. What was your thought process within the transition from that event moving forward?
I always say it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And I was the girl that never really got to go to college and never really got to experience that life. Rather, I always did actually want to be that girl. So when the doctor walked in and said I could do my rehab at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, it was the best news that I could have ever heard. And I say that because as that little girl, I looked at the Olympic Training Center as a lot like college. I mean, there's a dorm room, there's cafeterias. Instead of going to class,
I
essentially,
love
you're
it.
going to practice. You're going to practice,
Yeah.
and I was now 22, and I had never been off my skate since I was 6 years old. So I really didn't know what to do with myself. So my rehab every day, twice a day, became my training, and that world became my biggest, supporters of that, and the doctors, and was able to get me back on my feet within only 6 months.
I love it. And was that a pretty direct transition for you? So you still skated after that incident, correct?
I did. Yep.
And how long did you
I did.
skate for? I didn't know you skated
Um,
afterwards.
yep. Nope. You're good. I skated another 4 years. So
Mhm.
then uh, the first year I came back and skated within 6 months, made a World Cup team. And at that time, I had a plate and 10 screws in my foot. Essentially, exactly 1 year later, the doctor had to take all of the hardware out. And with
Mm,
that surgery, with him taking that out, that's when he would have known if my foot needed to be amputated. But the foot, I'm sorry, didn't need to be amputated, and the dream was still alive. And the Olympics happen every 4 years, and
yeah.
essentially, we call them a quad. So now we're 2 years down and 2 years to go. And
Mhm.
I was at that 2 year mark, but it was really now go time, and I couldn't wait to head to that starting line in 2014.
I absolutely love that. And so that makes a lot more sense of like your retirement was later than this incident. Um, and how do you make that transition? Because you're not only an Olympian, you have so much also that you have to offer. I know we were speaking about your title as the comeback kid. Why is that your title? Obviously for reasons within the Olympics, but how does that also correlate with your story?
Well, thank you so much for asking that question,
Yeah.
because I love telling that part. And for me, essentially looking back at my life, it's always been the comeback. And in kindergarten, I was diagnosed with a learning disability, and one that was so severe that it wasn't just going to go away when I was 34 years old. And, I'm always going to face a battle, and I'm always going to face a challenge. But it was something that I was so embarrassed about in middle school and high school that I was just so ashamed of it that if I was gone for, skating meet or whatnot, which I 99.9 of the time always was gone for skating.
Yeah.
But my friends would say, Kelly, like, why don't we see you or whatnot? And I would say, like, oh, I was gone for skating or whatnot. I just really covered it up. But now I'm so proud of it. And the reason why is because actually, when I made the 2014 Olympic team, my special ed teacher of high school had said to me, and this is, mind you, like, I'm probably like 10 years out of high school at this point, and
Yeah.
I was still ashamed to admit it, and that I had a learning disability. And she had said, just think of how many people you can help by telling your story. And again, as that mid 20s, I was like, no, like, well, I don't have one. But I sat with myself and really thought, yeah, let me put myself back into that middle school, high school girl where I was so ashamed and embarrassed by it and had no belief. But yet now I have all the confidence because I was over and able to overcome that. And I think that's what is so important of just, we've all been a kid in our life, and no matter how old we are, we're always going to be able to come back from a challenge that we're facing. And that was just the start of my comeback, is at kindergarten being diagnosed with learning disability.
And I know we had that direct commute, that direct line of connection, because I've never heard of anyone's story so similar. So completely resonate with you on within your story. And I absolutely love that the statement that you said of you can go back and resonate with those kids that do need your confidence
Mhm.
because of your story. And I think that's so important that we all have mentors within our own spaces and things that we're going through, because people have been through the same circumstances. So I 100% applaud you for doing that work with children and their confidence and growing up, because like middle school and high school usually are not a lot of fun for a lot of
Yeah.
individuals. So um right now How are you moving forward, or how do you work with this niche of helping children and their confidence? Like, how do you do that right now?
hmm Right now, I'm really just pushing my way through to be able to
Yeah.
just tell my story and help in as many as inspire as I can. And then essentially, after they would hear me, if they wanted to do work, one on one, I'm always an open book because if there's a line, I maybe have walked it one way or another
Yeah.
from my story. So it's just really, as I said, everything happens for a reason. It's not my story. It's my story to help and share to others. And that's what is so important about, me just being of who I am, because I don't want it to be about me. I just want to share and let it feed off of me to help, kids who maybe have no belief or growing up without a father or a mother, or whatever odds that are stacked against you, or having not being the best reader, you know what I mean, whatever
Yeah.
the scenario is. I just want to be able to be there and help as many.
I absolutely love that. And that's 100% what I believe, which makes good coaches, is having that heart, and the story behind it is, it's so empowering. So, I
Thank
absolutely
you.
love to hear that. So if you are listening in today and this resonates with you and your story, would absolutely love for you to contact Kelly. So before we get into, oh gosh, what was that? Okay. This is totally me. My listener definitely knows that I'm like, oh gosh, it's just
I
my,
love it.
I'm like, okay, Lauren, you're jumping like 4 steps in front of the other. So if you had one piece of advice for somebody that might be struggling with their confidence right now, um how would you, like, what was a certain part in your life, maybe if you have a good story of how you were able to gain your confidence, or just a tip on how to gain the confidence into doing crazy things like you have done?
Thank you. Yeah, my best advice and little tip, I guess, is one, just love yourself.
Mm,
And because if you don't love who you are, you're never going to not only not love you, but you're not going to let others love who you are, because it comes from within you. And you have to be so strong within who you are and be so proud of that. And really just, I don't want to say become obsessed, but essentially kinda of you yourself, because at the end of the day, you're going to be your own biggest cheerleader sometimes. And for me, my biggest, tip was practice. And that saying, practice makes perfect. And at that, all those times that I didn't believe in myself until my early 20s, I would have to sit in front of the mirror and tell myself, I am beautiful, I am pretty, or whatever it is that you have to get for you to believe that. And for me, that's what it was. Because
mm,
if we don't believe that, then we're never going to be able to conquer what we want to conquer, because
mm,
it all comes again from that belief within inside of you and how bad you want to overcome it. And so my best like advice and tip is just don't give up on yourself, and just know that it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It took me a long time and a lot of sayings in front of that mirror for me to be able to talk and share that and be proud of my my mess becoming my message, essentially.
mm.
And, but to just, really have yourself centered with you and who you are. Because if you're not, you're all over the grid. So just start with you and practice on yourself. And that's how you're able to let others feed off of you.
I love that, Kelly. I definitely feel your heart in that answer. And I think it's so true that confidence does come within. And if we don't love ourselves, it's very hard to have
Mhm.
to grow that confidence muscle. So thank you. I absolutely resonated with that as well.
Thank
Um,
you.
and for the listeners today, how can somebody get a hold of you, get in contact with you? What are your socials? Which one are you on the most? All
Mhm.
the things.
Yes. My favorite is Instagram. So I'm an open book. If you ever want to message me, please do. My name is just Kelly Gunther. If you see 2 R's, that is still me. And I jump in and out of Clubhouse here and there. I'm not so present as I used to be. I'm on Twitter, and right now I'm hacked on Facebook. So give me a second, but sometimes I'm up on there. But to really find me, my most present is on Instagram.
Well, I absolutely love it. And I'm sure that when women and gentlemen, there's mostly all women that listen to this, when they do listen to this, they will find some inspiring content over on your Instagram as well. Thank you so much, Kelly. Your story is so inspiring and so heartfelt. And I felt the authenticity. So thank you so much for showing up today and telling your story, because I truly get insanely inspired by women like you who come on here and they tell their stories of, though I, like this happened, but guess what? I didn't let it keep me down. And I think it's so important that we just keep getting back up. So
yes, I love that. Yes. Thank you so much, Lauren. And that's another thing too, is that there's a silver lining in everything. And when the road sucks, you have to find that. And I know it sucks in that moment to find that everything happens for a reason when it feels like it's crumbling and life sucks. But if you find that silver lining, that's what gets us out on the other side. So I appreciate you so much for having me. It's been an honor to talk to your guest and talk to you.
Likewise, Kelly. Thank you so much again. So if you ladies want to get in contact with Kelly, her Instagram is Kelly Gunther, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, anyways, love, I am so thankful that you listened in, tuned in, and got to hear Kelly's story, because dear Lord, it has inspired me and I'm ready to go do some more work after that one. So thank you so much again, and we will talk to you soon. Bye. I hope you are so excited about where you're going, because I know I'm excited for you. Thank you so much for listening in today. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you shared it with a girlfriend or posted it on social media. Tag me so I could personally say thank you. I am so grateful. And until next time,